And hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Chapters here on Armstrong Television. Chapters is the television show that profiles authors, editors, and publishers in the states of West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. I'm Eliot Parker, and it's great to have you with us. We are talking monsters, we're talking horror writing, and we're talking children's books, all with a very multi-talented and multi-genre author, Eugene Johnson. And he's here to talk to us today about his writing projects, both his past projects, his current projects, and his future projects. And Eugene is a filmmaker, he's an author and editor and columnist of science fiction, fantasy, horror, and supernatural thrillers. He has written and edited in various genres. His anthology Appalachian Undead, which was co-edited with Jason Sizemore, was selected by FearNet as one of the best books of 2012. His articles and stories have been published by award-winning Apex Publishing, The Zombie Feed, Evil Jester Press, Warrior Sparrow Press, and more. Eugene's latest anthology, Drive-In Creature Feature, pays homage to monster movies, and it features New York Times best-selling authors Clive Barker, Joe Lansdale, Christopher Golden, Jonathan Mayberry, and many more. His novel, The Psychology of Monsters, is also due out in 2016. Eugene is also the project manager at Evil Jester Press. He's currently working on several of his own projects, including Brave, a horror anthology honoring people with disabilities, Where Nightmares Come From, a nonfiction book on the art of storytelling in the horror genre, and his children's book series, Life Lessons with Little Monsters. He has a master's in mental health counseling, and when he's not writing, he spends time helping others as a therapist, and he resides in West Virginia with his fiancée, daughter, and 2 sons. And we're delighted to have Eugene Johnson with us today to talk to us about all of his outstanding and interesting projects that he's working on. So Eugene, welcome to Chapters. Good to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me, Eliot. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me a little bit about how you got interested in writing and sort of where all this got started for you.
I have always been a storyteller at heart, going all the way back to when I was a child. I would sit and I would draw a lot and write a lot. At a very young age, my grandparents, who I spent a lot of time with and lived with, my grandmother loved all types of, what would you call them? Joe Lansdale calls them things of the fantastic, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, the Twilight Zone. And so she, at a very young age, got me into that world. And I remember watching the old Twilight Zone, going all the way back to when I was probably about 5 or so. I can have some very vivid memories of going to the movies and seeing movies like the Poltergeist and Gremlins, and then reading comics, and then wanting to create my own world. So I would sit originally at that age, you start drawing, and then you start, coming up with these fantastic worlds. And then from that, it just grew, and I wanted to be an artist and a comic book writer, and then I got into film, and every day I would always write down an idea I have, something in a far off place, and so it just kept growing and growing and growing to I was a storyteller at heart, and I wanted to tell those stories to people.
Well, let's talk about one of your first publications that we mentioned a moment ago, Appalachian Undead, which came out in 2012. You worked with Jason Sizemore from Apex Books on this project, and this is an anthology of zombie horror. So I wanted to ask you some of the parameters and some of the challenges maybe of putting an anthology together, and what were some of your experiences like, and how did you get those stories, collect those stories, and ultimately determine these were going to be the stories that went into the anthology?
Well, I had always loved short stories, just loved short story collections and anthologies. And to be honest with you, up until around 2010 or so, I had not thought about what really goes into an anthology, and then I was just kind of introduced into that world. You and I go way back, as we were talking about earlier, and wanting to be writers and storytellers, and I just kind of happened upon anthology editing, and it's very much, to me, the way I describe it, it's very much like being an executive producer on a movie. And the really fun part is you get to have a playground, so to speak, a wide world, and you get to play in that wide world with everyone else. I know I've worked with Jonathan Mayberry, and I'm a huge fan of his, and he says that for anthology editing, it's having a big playground, and he loves playing in the playground with other kids, and that's pretty much what it is. As an anthology editor, you come up with the type of collection you'd want, the theme, and then you of course you have to put together a pitch for an anthology. And at the time, I was helping Jason Sizemore with one of his imprints. It was back in around 2000. It was 2010, 2011. He had a imprint called the Zombie Feed, which at that time, that's when the whole zombie genre was blowing up. And I was helping him. I helped run his website with him, and helped him with the imprint. And I had always wanted to do a anthology, because, like I said, I got really interested, and I started learning about them. And so I put together a pitch of Appalachian Undead, which is zombie stories set in the Appalachian culture and region, because we live in such a wonderful culture, and it is in so many ways. It has its own kind of myths and magic of what I'm talking about, of this wonderful region we live in, and a lot of people just don't understand it, which adds to the mystery. So I came up with Appalachian Undead. Why not throw zombies in Appalachia? And so what you do is you put together the pitch, and then you take it to the editor, and then you work on who's going to be in it once you have the theme, and then that's when you start inviting. You invite authors to participate. So it is very much, I always like to say when asked that question, it's very much like a film. And you're like an executive producer. You come up with the theme, you go out there, you find the studio, you find the different players to help that project become a reality. And basically, as the editor, not only do you edit the stories, but you're also making sure that production, that book comes to life. And, there's a lot of great editors out there. You have Ellen Datlow. You also have Jonathan Mayberry's been doing some wonderful work. He just did a series of The X-Files. He revived The X-Files. You have Christopher Golden. So, and it's all pretty much putting together this big work, this big production, and bringing it together.
Very good. Excellent. Well, I know that Appalachian Undead was an outstanding collection of zombie horror stories, and you're working on another one right now, which looks like it's going to be fantastic as well, and that's Drive-In Creature Feature, which pays homage to monster movies. So what's going to be sort of the approach there in terms of paying homage to those monster movies that readers might expect to see when they look at Drive-In Creature Feature?
Well, you remember growing up, and going to a drive-in theater and seeing like a really cheesy movie. There's so many wonderful ones out there, from, the 1950s, the 1980s. You have anything from The Blob to The Howling, to The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And those movies were always a lot of fun, because when you went to a drive-in theater, you just kind of experienced it, not just yourself, you're closed off the cover, but you're sitting around with other people experience. So this book, Drive-In Creature Feature, actually pays homage to that. It's a monster theme anthology, which basically pays homage to all the movies of the silver screen, and it has 19 wonderful writers, including legendary William F. Nolan, who wrote Logan's Run, but he also wrote the script for the classic movie. And he's written a ton of fantastic work. and it has Jonathan Mayberry in it. Clive Barker, who is a just prolific writer and director. He wrote the Books of the Blood, the Hellbound Heart, Nightbreed, and then he directed those movies too, Nightbreed and Hellraiser, and he has a wonderful story in it, which is called the Yattering and Jack, and it's just a classic little fun tale that he put together. It's not typically like some of the other stuff he has. We actually have Christopher Golden, Mike Mignola, who has written in the Hellboy universe. Mike Mignola created Hellboy, and so we have a nice Hellboy story in it. And then we just have a lot of great original writers in there. Lisa Morden, who's also she's the president of the HWA, the Horror Writers Association, and all of us just have a love for the classic movie monsters that just kind of made you, it kind of scared you, but made you laugh all at the same time.
Yeah. And I love the cover, and we'll put a picture of the cover up on the screen so our audience can see it, of Creature Feature. But I love the big red, hairy, kind of Yeti-ish looking Bigfoot monster. We've got the blob monster with the sharp teeth. We've got the spider. But then we've got the bottom image on the cover I really like. We get the cars from maybe the 50s and late 50s, early 60s, and people sort of facing the screen and looking at these monsters coming at them. And I do remember the drive-in experience, although I'm not old. I just keep getting younger as time goes on. I don't know about you, but I do remember that. But I wanted to ask you too about reaching out to some of those authors that are in this, and I know you mentioned some of them a moment ago. What was that process like, and was there ever a moment where you said to yourself, "Oh my goodness, I'm reaching out and contacting, Clive Barker, or I'm reaching out to Joe Lansdale. I can't believe I'm doing this." And was there ever a moment where you were sort of sheepish about what you thought the reaction might be when you asked them to contribute to your anthology?
Well, I don't know how you are. I know you're a fantastic writer and author yourself. So I don't know how you are when you meet your kind of idols, or you meet these wonderful authors that are they're masters. But I guess for everyone, if you love writing and you love storytelling, you get kind of giddy, and you get a little nervous. So I think, one of the things with the process is you always want to try to keep it professional, but you also can't help but geek out sometimes, because you're talking to Clive Barker, or you're talking to, like I said, one of my all-time favorites in my top 10 is Jonathan Mayberry. He is one of the nicest authors you will ever meet. He believes in paying it forward, and he believes in a strong writers community. And in fact, I just learned recently that he had met and learned from Ray Bradbury and a couple of the other greats, and he had just kind of wrote back and forth and learned so much from them. And so he's trying to carry on those spirits. So when, reaching out to those authors, it's just such a privilege, first of all, to be able to contact them. And then just to, work with them. And so, try to keep it professional always. But it's always just a fun process to get to know these writers that you admired for so long. And it starts with an email. You get their contact information, and then you reach out to them, and then you just go back and forth. If you send them the guidelines, and I think I've even invited you to a couple of these things before. I send you the guidelines, what the pay is, and what the theme is, and then you just kind of collaborate. It's a lot of collaboration, and you go from there, and then if they're interested, they'll work on a story and send it to you by the time it's due. There are some, like I had a really well-known writer everyone knows, I don't know if I should mention his name. And we had tried to negotiate with him to be in the book. And it was just one of those things we couldn't make happen. It was really no one's fault or anything. It just, the stars didn't line up. So that kind of crushes you a little bit, but you still go on because there's so many wonderful authors and writers to work with.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that any writer who is at any stage in the writing process or in their writing career, beginning, middle, or successful, always has writers they look up to and they reach out to. And I think that a lot of writers, especially novice writers or writers just getting started, would be surprised at reaching out to a writer that they admire through social media or through their website, how kind and generous and appreciative those who we consider big name writers are that they get contacted and reached out to. And sometimes it seems like they're sort of behind an imperial wall and you can't contact them or shouldn't contact them, or who am I? I'm just a little person over here. But it's amazing how when you do reach out to many writers that they will get in contact with you and they will get back with you and they will express interest and appreciation that you contacted them. So it's really a neat process. And you talked about collaboration, and I think that certainly is true. Well, we have Appalachian Undead, and then we have Drive-In Creature Feature. From that has spawned a series of children's books that you're working on. One of them is Life Lessons with Little Monsters, starring Little Frank and the Body. And we have the cover here of Frankenstein with a little kitty cat with Frankenstein features. So tell us a little bit about your children's book, Life Lessons with Little Monsters.
For years now, I've always wanted to do some type of kids book. I have kids myself, and they were the type of kids that always wanted to know what I was working on. Always wanted me to tell them some new story I was working on, or a story that I was working on or editing from an author that had submitted. And, there's so much of that work when you're working in horror you can't share with kids. So I've always wanted to do some type of children's book, and I've always loved the concept of, the old kind of classic monsters, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Invisible Man, And so I had come up with an idea of a children's book series called Life Lessons with Little Monsters, which basically helps teach kids. They don't only entertain kids with these fun monsters, but they teach them fun lessons that we as parents need to teach our kids, and they need to learn growing up. And when you're a parent, you often kind of like, how am I going to teach these kids this stuff? How do I teach them how to learn their body parts? How do I teach them the proper safety? And so growing up for kids and parents, it's scary. So I like the whole play on the kind of the mission statement is that though growing up for kids and parents is scary for both of them, it doesn't have to be. And Life Lessons with Little Monsters makes it fun. So one of the things when I came up with the idea was just looking at fun plays on lessons for kids. So for the first in the series, it's called Little Frank and the Body, and he's the son of Frankenstein, and so he's teaching kids the different parts that makes up our body, and that we, he basically says in the book, my dad told me that we need to love our body. And everyone should do it. And so it's him walking through the process of learning what makes it up. And then, so that was the first one. And so from there, I think in a series of a couple weeks, I started talking to people, friends I knew in the writing community, and I actually have a background in counseling, so I wanted to use that as well. So I started just coming up with new fun lessons that kids would love and that would just be entertaining. And so Little Frank is the first one, and the second one is Little Invisible Girl. in the treasure hunt, and it's her basically taking kids on an adventure of trying to find words they learn in school. Ball, tree, flower, sight words as well. And it was just something we're still working. We have several more planned out.
Very good. And I know that you've taken these two books, Life Lessons with Little Monsters and Little Invisible Girl, to some elementary schools in the region and have shared that with students. What's the reaction been from the kids when they actually get to hear the story and see the pictures and hear the theme and the message behind it?
I think that's my favorite thing about this series is I had a fantastic artist help me with the first one, Little Frank. His name is Jim Kavanaugh. He's from Boston. And he put together a really friendly image that kids just love. And so the moment I sit down, the kids they're taken with this. And, and you open up the book and it goes through, this is the head. And then it says, the head holds my brain that helps me think. And then it goes to the next one. These are my ears. And, the ears help me to hear wonderful things like people talking and music. And when going through and reading these to the kids, even, I read to one wonderful school. It was a great school, Barbersville Elementary. I read to the kindergarten and the pre-K. And it never felt how bright those kids are. They started, I would say, where's your head? And they would all just say, my head's right here. Along with Little Frank, where's your tummy? My tummy's right here. And they just got into it. And they're just so eager to learn and have fun. And so it was just a joy, and they just all loved it. There was only one child that I think was taken aback and was like, no monsters, I don't like monsters. But by the end of reading it to her, she was just warming up to the monsters. But it was just a joy to see the kids enjoy something fun that I put together.
That's great, and that's a great thing that you do too, is taking that out and exposing kids not only to the good stories and the themes behind it, but that reading can be fun. Reading can be a good thing, and you can have fun and enjoyment through the reading process. So, Eugene, what is I know you've got so many balls in the air and so many things going on. What is the next project? Aside from Creature Feature, which will be out later on, and you're doing the Psychology of Monsters, which is going to be a novel, which is due out in 2016. Anything else down the road from that you're working on that viewers could expect to see from you in the future?
Well, Creature Feature actually just came out, and it's out now. You can get it on Amazon and at various bookstores. And my novel, The Psychology of Monsters, which is a book series, it will come out towards the end of November. So I have that coming out. We also have two more Little Monster books coming out by the end of the year, which is Little Igor Goes to the Doctor. And I got a great input and I had a technical advisor from Dr. Ross Patton, who's a wonderful doctor. He works at Marshall. He used to be the team doctor and everything. Wonderful, and he's a family doctor, and he had so much input. So that book's going to be really great to see come out. And then we have Little Drac with Teeth, about going to the dentist and teeth and brushing and all that. So that's coming out. And then I have I have a charity anthology coming out this year, which you will also be in. It's the political. I'm not a politics person, but the political climate's been so nuts. We decided to take that craziness and do a political horror theme anthology. Also going off of the hype of like wonderful TV shows like Brain Dead and things to that degree, and all the proceeds are going to go to the HWA writers relief fund they have for when writers have emergencies they can apply. And then in the distance feature, one of my passions project is where I'm working with a very well-known bestseller, Western Osher, who did SEAL Team 666. Him and I are now working and pitching to publishers this really neat anthology called Brave, which the theme is people with disabilities and empowering them. So each story has a person with some type of disability, and they have to kind of raise up and conquer the villain or whatever the roadblock is in the story. And it's kind of symbolic of how people with disabilities wake up every day and they have to face their monster, which is their disability, and just to kind of survive the day and conquer it bravely. So that's a huge project. And I have a couple other ones I'm working on, including a follow-up to Driving Preacher feature for 2017.
Excellent. So you've got a lot of exciting projects, and all those sound really, really interesting, and we're certainly looking forward to that. So Eugene, in our final moments, if someone wants to get in contact with you, to talk to you about your books, to talk to you about your writing, or if they want to get copies of your books, how can they get in contact with you, and where can they get copies of your books?
Well, right now I'm the project manager of Evil Jester Press, which is founded by Charles Day, a wonderful writer and patron of the arts. He used to be head of the mentor program at the HWA, and he has a company, Charles Day Publishing, and it has several different imprints. One of them is called Evil Jester Press. It's their horror imprint, and they've worked with wonderful writers like Joe McKinney, the Dead City series, and Lisa Morning, and many others. And I can be reached there. I have a email address. People can contact me there. I'm on Facebook. I have a website that should be up here soon. People could also contact me there. Appalachian Undead, you could order it from Apex Publishing, wonderful publishing company out of Lexington, Kentucky. Or you can get it at Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. Also, Books A Million. And then the Life Lessons with Little Monsters books can be purchased at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and sites like that.
Very good. Eugene Johnson, filmmaker, author, editor, and columnist of science fiction, fantasy, horror, and supernatural thrillers, and also the project manager at Evil Jester Press, has been our guest here today on Chapters. We've been talking to him about his anthologies, Appalachian Undead, Drive-In Creature feature, along with his children's book series, Life Lessons with Little Monsters, Little Frank and the Body, and also Little Invisible Girl and the Treasure Hunt. It's been a pleasure having you here today. Congratulations on all your books that are already out and the ones that are coming out, and we wish you the best of luck, and as more things come out, we certainly would like to have you back on Chapters to talk about them. So congratulations and thanks so much.
Thank you for having me, Eliot. It was a pleasure.
And we want to take a moment to say thanks to Natalie Sheets and her staff here at Empire Books and News for providing our on-site support and assistance today. We encourage you to come by Empire Books and News to inquire about Eugene Johnson's books or any of the other books that you've seen featured here on the program. Many of them are for sale and available right here at Empire Books and News. So stop on down to Pullman Square next time you've got a reading itch and get that satisfied right here at Empire Books and News. And Natalie and her staff can get you taken care of with something that you're looking to read and looking forward to reading right here at Empire Books and News. And we appreciate them providing our on-site support and assistance today. And if you're a frequent viewer of the program and you're also a user of social media, we've made it possible for you to reach out to us here on the program through a variety of social media platforms. One of the primary ways you can reach us here on the show is through email. The email address is right here at the bottom of the screen, lp4@zoominternet.net. If you do email us, we ask that you please let us know your name and where you're writing from so that we can keep track of that. If you're a YouTube viewer, you can find old archived episodes of the Chapters programs from our 3+ years of author, editor, and publisher interviews right there through the Armstrong One Wire page on YouTube. And you start by going to youtube.com. From there, hit the / key and type in Armstrong One Wire, all one word. And from there, go and look for the Chapters link, and we have all of our episodes archived for you there as well. And that address also is right here at the bottom of the screen. And if you're a Facebook user, we have a Chapters page on Facebook as well. All you need to do is go to facebook.com / chapters, or when you log into facebook.com in the search field, just type in Chapters. And from there, you can find our more recently archived programs there for you to watch at your convenience. And you can also interact with viewers and talk with viewers about the programs that you've seen here on Chapters. So whatever social media platform you like, or whichever social media platform you're comfortable with, we've made it possible for you to reach out to the program through one of those methods, or a combination of those methods, or all three of those methods. And we know many of you have done that, and we certainly appreciate you doing that, and also the feedback that we do receive about our Chapters program. So thank you so much for taking time to reach out to us and taking time to stay involved with what's going on here on the program. And that's going to do it for us this time on Chapters, but please come again next time. And in the meantime, stay tuned to this station for news and views that impact you and your community.